Well, hi again, everybody, and welcome to this week's edition of Inside Furman Athletics. It is our monthly visit with JD the AD. Jason Donnelly here, and Bob Richey is our special guest for the first 25, 30 minutes of our get-together here today. Boss, how are you? That's you, not you, by the way.
I didn't say anything. Oh, man, that's great. Thank you, Dan, for having us. It's actually really cool that if you are a fan, this is in a really funny way. So Bob's in season, so he's in it, like meaning that he's X and O, and he's meeting with the staff. They're getting ready for practice. They're meeting with our staff, getting ready for operations, for game day, marketing, all the great things that they're doing. And in a really cool way, Bob just left a coaching session with his staff where they're talking about personnel and they're talking about positioning. And if you're a fly in the wall for the last 5 minutes, it's a really cool basketball conversation because he's figuring out what to do with his guys and how to put it all together. But that was really fun for me just to catch up with you real quick. But really excited to have everybody here and thankful to have Bob and his time. We won't be long because he's literally in the middle of everything he's doing. But I'm really excited. I'm really very excited for Furman basketball, for what this season is and where we're headed, and very thankful for Bob, his leadership and everything that he does. I hope our fan base knows, they know he's a great coach. They've gotten to see that in the performance that's on the field, but the work that he does off the court is just tremendous. Work ethic, energy, enthusiasm, life lessons, further the man, family man, all the different things he's doing is just incredible. But we're really excited to have you, Bob, and we're excited for this season for you and for your team. But just want to talk about where your head's at and what you're thinking, and we're leading into, this is like a preview of SoCon Media Day tomorrow. So you guys, all the fans, get access to Bob before a big day tomorrow for the conference.
By the way, before you answer, that's a heck of an introduction, so no pressure.
No pressure. Yeah. No pressure. Well, we're excited as well. And, obviously we feel like we've got a lot of pieces back. We missed two big ones, not wanting to, not undervalue what we're losing in Alex Hunter and Conley Garrison. Those two guards were phenomenal for us last year. But having two first-team all-conference players back, and then really thinking that this could potentially be a year that you see another bump from Marcus Foster and what he's able to do. And we've just seen a lot of guys get a lot better this offseason, and without missing anybody. I mean, from Garrett to Joe to Tyrese to, all of our guys really, I feel like, took a big jump. Our two freshmen have come in and shown that they could potentially, they're both physically ready to play, which is encouraging. At this point right now for us, it's literally like, okay, all these pieces, you got this piece looks good, this piece looks good. Now as we're kind of getting into it, you got to get this thing to fit. And we all know as coaches there's a little bit of an art to that. Nobody necessarily – I mean, I remember last year, we started and beat Louisville and we were playing bigger. And then as the year went on, we ended up starting to downshift a little bit and changed a little while. But that's kind of the fun of it right now. And we've been able to – we've got two outside competitions that we're able to do privately. And then, here in, 13 days we're tipping.
Yeah.
So.
And I had wrote that down as just talking about expectations. And so just got off a call with guys that, Jeff Goodman and Rob Dowster and all these guys from the Field of 68 talking about Furman basketball and their appreciation for you. I mean, they're already projecting ahead on events. And they're like, if Bob Richey's your coach, you're always going to have a great team. So it's a great compliment on a national level for that type of recognition. But I also think what you mentioned before is an important point for our fan base is the expectations that just because you see these rankings or notoriety with the program, those are projections as you look ahead to the end of the season. So a lot of these things, when you're looking at fan base, there's a lot of reason for optimism and excitement. But Conley and Alex Hunter, I mean, those guys had a major role in last year's team. So I think there's a part of it as a coach, like even though these guys have played, and I think one of the greatest stories that's going to come back is the continuity of the roster, that besides the seniors who graduate. But how do you fill that void with two guys that played such a large role? I mean, they're 40% of your offense and defensive strategy last year when you're thinking about going into games.
Well, it's a little bit been program philosophy. We've always said, Dan's heard me say this on our podcast a lot, so he probably knows what I'm about to say here. But
how are you going to replace Matt Rafferty?
You always, I asked one of my mentors when I first got the job, I said, you win 20 games every year. How do you do it? And he didn't bat an eye. He goes, I coach this year's team and next year's team at the same time. Mm-hmm. And, that's something that we've always tried to carry out, that, you're not going to replace Alex and Conley, right? You're not going to replace Matt Rafferty. You're not going to replace Clay Mounts and Noah Gurley. But the two parts of the roster that everybody wants to know about are who do you have coming back as starters, and then who'd you recruit. Mm-hmm. But the key to our sustainability so far of our winning has been that middle group, right? The ones that maybe didn't start or weren't prime guys that nobody's really talking about. We've always put a huge emphasis in the offseason to really push those and what we call squeeze them up, and I think that's hopefully what you're going to see. But, I mean, we were talking about it the other day, right, the Phillies. I mean, you look at Phillies and Padres, I mean, that's 5 and 6, right? I mean, that's they got the best at the end of the season, and that's when it matters most, and that's when the stories are going to be written. We're going to play an unbelievable schedule, which we're super excited about. We're still when you lose, Conley was a gift. I mean, he's a coach's dream, in the fact that he was so cerebral. Our system usually takes a year to learn, and it took him about a month. So he was an outlier. Alex was a guy. I mean, I've never coached a game here without Alex Hunter.
Yeah.
And as starting point guard for 4 years and as backup point guard my first year, that self-admittedly, to be honest with you, and I don't mind saying this publicly, I mean, it's been an adjustment for me. Like really trying to figure out. We've got some good depth there. I think that's the best part of it. But 13 days out, I honestly can't tell you who's going to start the North Greenville game at point. I think Joe, as of today, has kind of had the inside track on it. But there's 3 guys there with Joe, JP, and Carter that, depending on the day, I mean, I couldn't tell you tonight in open practice. Y'all might text me at night and be like, "What'd you say on the?" I mean, or you could text me and say, "I see it." I mean, he's playing at a high level, and that's not to push one up or push the other down. It's just at some point I'm going to have to make a decision, knowing that we've got quality depth there, and really try to get that chemistry together with the team.
Out of reflex, have you called anybody Alex?
I have not done that. I have not done that. But I'll tell you what, I love our team now, but I do miss those guys, and it has been different. It has been different. I think the biggest thing, we had a scrimmage this weekend, and we did not shoot the ball well at all. We shot 22% from 3, and I was kind of racking my brain this week, and I was like, man, we lost 2 of our best shooters. But then I reminded myself, well, we had a couple of those last year too.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not going to always shoot the ball great. And in fact, then I looked at the team we scrimmaged. I looked at the box score from last year, and one of them didn't make a 3 in that game either. And we'll be at a place in terms of having guys ready to play. But Alex's experience, his toughness on the ball, his ability to defend the point spot, and then Conley. It's interesting. Conley is a guy, I felt like he was a glue guy for us in a lot of ways last year. And this is interesting for our freshmen. When I was an assistant here, we had a very similar situation. I think it was back, I want to say this was 15-16, and Rafferty was a freshman. And it was really interesting. People forget this. And so in the summer when those guys pick pickup teams, Rafferty was picked last every single pickup game. Mm. And as we got closer to the season, we're kind of sitting in September, and Nico and I and the staff were like, probably going to redshirt this guy, going to take him a little while. And we had our second inter-squad scrimmage. I was standing in the scrimmage over by the visitor bench and where it would be during the game. And Rafferty made a play, and I looked across the court at Nico, and he kind of looked at me, and it was kind of like this, we got to figure this out. Yeah. Like he's probably going to be out here. And before I say this, I'm not saying he's the next Matt Rafferty.
Yep.
But we've seen a very similar path with Vanderwall.
Yep.
And it's a summer, what's going on, man, this is moving really fast, to all of a sudden a month ago it's like, oh, man, maybe redshirt. I took him to lunch one day, and I'm like, hey, you got a wide spectrum here. You could either play or you could redshirt. And now it's like, hey, he's playing. We've just got to figure out what spot and how and where.
Yeah.
And, those are good problems to have. But when you're thinking about your team 3 months ago, you're not really thinking about that emerging. And so now you have to recalibrate, and that's what competition and that's what camp does.
Well, the crazy thing for you is that, and a really nice thing, too, for anyone that's listening that's not aware, there's an open scrimmage tonight. Yep. And I think this has been a great opportunity. And you've been very intentional about having opportunities for our community, for our fans, for campers, for Hoops Night is coming up. We can talk a little bit about that, but just to have a lot of access to the program. But you're talking about Vanderbilt, like he could be a starter.
Could be.
Like you have some spots in terms of people that are set, but positions, it's still up in the air. And you have a wide range. You're talking about top 10, top 11 guys in terms of where this fits in, but your starting five's not set.
It's not set, and we got one more close scrimmage on Sunday, and you want to get out of that and kind of have a little bit of a feel of what this is going to look like. But I do think the strength in numbers aspect is going to be a key for our team this year, and I think it's going to be something interesting, and we're fighting every single day because it's you hear people say all the time, like in coaching, role clarity. We got to have clear roles. I think as we deal with this transfer deal and all the transitions, it's not going to be role clarity. It's going to be role commitment, right? Like, can you commit to this role? And like, really for this team, because of some of the parity, we're going to have a group that really, the strength in numbers aspect of just, hey, if we can go 10 deep and we can pull that off and everybody has a role. And then just like in staff meeting this morning, we were talking about just, you think about Chattanooga last year. We were talking about this, and this is interesting. When you first think of Chattanooga, you're like, man, huge, right? You're thinking big. They've got, look at them at point when Malachi's 6'4", and then they've got the Kansas transfer, and he's 6'8", and then they got this kid. Well, then all of a sudden you're like, well, hold up. We're up 12 at home, and we got all the momentum, and what'd they do? They took their 3-man, and they put them at the 5, and they went super small, and all of a sudden we couldn't guard them. And the 3-man at the 5 just ate us up. So my point is, they had this ability through the course of the season to go big, to go medium, to go small, to go fat. Like, they could really just change it up in the course of different games. And now, to be able to do that, you got to have a team that the humility to get over ego and to get over like, oh, man, does this shrink my minutes a little bit? I think that's going to be the key for us, and so far I haven't seen any signs that our group's not willing to do that. But does that take a guy that is good enough to play 26 minutes? He plays 21 or 22 instead. But then the next night maybe he plays 28, right? We're playing a smaller team, and so I think we're going to have the flexibility to do that as long as we can get buy-in from the whole group.
I'm listening to you talk about what I would call from a basketball standpoint first world problems, because you've got an incredible amount of talent and depth, and I just can't help but think back. You and I arrived on campus the same year, and thinking about those early teams, even the first couple of years that Nico was here, you had a core of guys, but then if you say warm bodies, you're insulting, and I don't mean it that way. But you've got a lot more depth, a lot more talent to deal with now, where you've got guys fighting for playing time than you had. Some of those decisions 6, 7, 8 years ago were a lot easier than they are now. Is the point I'm trying to make.
And a lot of times you hear that, Dan, and you think, oh, that's great, and that makes it easier. And what you're finding out in today's time, that's not necessarily the case, right? I mean, and I've thought about that here this month, just going through camp. 18-19, it was such a fun team. Okay, we won our first 12 games. Nobody expected it. We came out, like, what's going on? Beat Nova, beat Loyola. There were 2 all-conference guys on that team in Matt and Jordan. You had 3 guys that never started a game before that were just excited to be out there, and we had basically 2 other guys off the bench, and then you had 2 freshmen in Mike and Slaw that didn't know if they were going to play or not, and so we would either go 7, 8, or 9, and it was super simple and it was super clear, and it was like, hey, get the ball to Rafferty, get Jordan shots, the rest of you guys flow in the offense, and Noah and Alex and Clay did it with such humility, and really when you think about it, and this is what we were talking about in our team meeting yesterday. They had such an appreciation just to be out there. It was just like, man, I'm wearing the jersey, and this is what it's about. And last year I was on the bench backing guys up, and now I'm out here. And then you had Trey Clark coming off the bench. I'll never forget. We're down 9 at Nova. He gets the steal. He gets the and one, puts us back in the game. You had Andrew Brown that had the humility as a senior to say, hey, Noah's starting, coach. We're in rhythm. I'll come off the bench. And you had these 2 young bucks and Mike and Slaw that, we played them some, didn't play them the other. So what that does for you is it's like there's no meetings of like, hey, I don't like my role, or, you got parents wondering who should be playing and why is he not playing. So now fast forward it, you got depth, and you really on this team, I mean, this isn't coach speak, our 11th man right now could play in a game in our league and, would have no problems, right? And so what happens is, with rotational purposes of trying to get to a clean 9-10, as like rotating 11 guys is hard, like it's tough. And so now you're having these conversations, and we've got to be able to manage that. I think it's going to be the key to our year. and being able for the team to trust us that if we have to make some adjustments that we have the ability to do that, but at the same time for us to understand that we're all in this together, and that's what a season's for.
Yeah, I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about the schedule.
Yep.
And I want to first compliment you and your staff. You guys are very intentional about setting up a schedule. And scheduling takes place years in advance, so you're arriving at a point. But you had a very clear goal, things you wanted to accomplish. Games in Greenville, games in Timmins. Got a really good non-conference slate. A lot of great teams will be played here, and this MTE opportunity is just phenomenal as an opportunity, and that's what we've all got to treat it as. But it's such a great opportunity, and I don't know if the public really understands how important this is, but it's great for Furman basketball. It's great for the Southern Conference for recognition. It's great for national TV. It's a great opportunity to play on a neutral court against teams that will not play you otherwise. They're not going to either bring you to their home court or play us here. Playing the game in Greenville, that opportunity where South Carolina and Clemson, who are also in it, who we would be happy to play. But as a part of that process of having that game in Greenville and then getting into this conference slate, but also on top of that, and this is something I don't want our fan base to take for granted, and I know that you really keep track of this, and our president has been talking about this in meetings, and board meetings and faculty meetings, national TV exposure and great impact for not just the basketball program, athletic department, but the university as a whole. We have so many national TV games, and it really speaks to the brand of Furman basketball. But I wanted you to just talk about your thoughts on the schedule, the upcoming years, the different things you're excited about or that you're looking ahead to.
Well, I think we checked off a lot of boxes, and you're constantly trying to balance a number of factors on that. But home games, I thought we were a little bit tilted the other way last year. We played, I think we ended up playing 16 true road games last year. And,
just some tough home and homes.
In some tough home and homes, which aren't bad, but it's just that many games on the road, that many games on a bus, that many games in somebody else's facility. How much can we get as many home games as we can? So this will be 17 home games if you include the Stephen F. Austin game at the Well, which is definitely the most that we've had. We'll play. But, okay, so we got the home games, which is, if you look at any metric right now, that's a key metric in terms of what you're doing metrically. But also, we've won 85% of our games at home, so the more we can play there, the better. It also gives the season ticket holder more viewings. We also wanted to get national exposure. If you think about this, so just off today, we're 6 of 31 on national TV. Okay, so the league has about, 10 national TV games. Mm-hmm. We're included in 3 of them. One of those 10 is a wild card slot that they haven't filled. So, and we're playing at Sanford that day. I'd be surprised if that wild card slot didn't get filled there.
Well, the ironic thing, this was your idea for the league. So this is how things work for you and against you. But Bob, in a really good way, at a coaches meeting, said, "Hey, I think we should leave," because last year it was to our disadvantage. Yep. They had predetermined a game in the last slot, and it should have been us on the last slot of the weekend to play. But the last game at Sanford, which is the one game on the SoCon schedule that no matter what happened, any revisions, that game's been there, and I think that's intentional by the league because I think they've looked at that as a championship matchup, but they're calling it a wild card.
But let's say it stands what it is. Yep. So we have 3 of the 9 that we're included in. 3 in Charleston, so 6 of our 31 today are on national TV. Mm-hmm. Do the math, right? I mean, you're talking about close to 20% of our basketball games on national TV, which is insane. Now, let's say the wild card gets picked up. That's 7. Mm-hmm. Let's say we make it to the semifinals and play well enough to be able to go to the finals.
Plus December 17th, what we're talking about doing.
Potentially get that.
Yep.
You could be looking at 10 of our 34 games on national TV.
Yep.
Okay, which if you're sitting here 3 years ago, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, the exposure that's starting to build, the ability for us, and who knows? I mean, ACC Network could come out and pick up the NC State game. I mean, there's different things but regardless of all that, I mean, look at the growth there, and I think you can't put a price tag on that. You can't. The awareness of the program, you can tell. You and I can feel it in fundraising. You can feel it in the community. You can feel it. Just building in the amount of time that it takes to get there. Now it's just trying to continue that and continue to push it forward.
Good.
But also I left out with that. So home games, national exposure, but then relative high-level mid-major games, right? So you're talking about Belmont. I mean, that's going to be one of the best mid-major contests of the year. We got Winthrop returning here. We're going to App State, which Dustin does a phenomenal job, and those guys are going to have a chance to win the Sun Belt. Those are games that, they've got tradition, they've got regional, they've got, those are high-level mid-major games. And so, I think that we were able to really check off a lot of boxes there. And then fourth, get into our league, and we know what type of games the league presents.
Well, Dan, in the interest of time, the other thing I wanted to switch to, and these are just, so you got this season, we're talking about all the different things that are taking place. Let's talk about sustainability. Let's talk about the program, things that we've talked about. When you look at an extended vision for Furman basketball, things that are important to you when you look down the road, things that you foresee and are opportunities, challenges, things we've got to focus on, the conversations we have. What are some of the thoughts you have for fan base when thinking about an extended run with Furman basketball?
Well, I mean, that's what gets me excited. It's just always thinking about, what next and where can this thing go. Before I say any of that, I was taught. We had dinner this weekend with a CEO that started a bank. And now it's a, billion-dollar company, and he said something that we like to say around here. He said, the most restricting thing in organizational behavior is limiting beliefs. Mm-hmm. That when it gets inside organization, that this is what limits us. And nobody necessarily discusses them. They're almost subconscious to a point that just the fabric of what's always been there before, you just kind of accept that, right? And when you're really, a lot of times those beliefs are made of paper. Like you just got to push those walls down, and you got to get people to see it, and you got to have moments where you start to, okay, here's where we can go. What's fueled me from being an assistant here, I just don't think there's anything that's pulling against us that we don't control, that a lot of times in college basketball, there are things that you don't control that are pulling against you. And what I mean by that, so sometimes your location, just the school is in this spot, right? Well, look at your Butlers, right? Mm-hmm. They're in Indianapolis. You look at your VCUs, they're in Richmond. You look at your Davidson, it's in Charlotte, okay? This market is only getting bigger. The thought of sitting around talking about that in 5 years we could have legit TV market opportunity, okay? Like that doesn't, you talk about a limiting belief. Mm-hmm. Like, well, now what did we just talk about a few minutes ago? Well, what if we're sitting here in 5 years and all this realignment's going on? They're saying, hey, there's that school, look at this program, and it's on this trajectory. Mm-hmm. And hold up, look at the Greenville TV market. Right, I saw something the other day about
top 35, Greenville, Spartanburg, Asheville. It's top 35 market.
I mean, it's moving, and it's not. You talk to anybody in real estate or anybody it's not going backwards, yeah. Right? And so you've got that piece of it. The second piece you have is an academic institution that is about the right things and is a prestigious degree that allows us to attract the best student athletes for us. And then also you got this beautiful campus, right? And we all know, this is no disrespect to other places, we're blessed and we have something unique with our campus, combined with our city, combined with our degree. And so the push for me is, I'm always a believer it starts with people. I think the mistake people make when they say it starts with people is they don't define exactly what type of people work in those organizations. The second part is your process. I feel like we're constantly trying to figure out how we can have a better process. How can we make our people better? When the last part of the recruiting piece for us, when a recruit comes on campus, hey, we're different. We're going to get you a degree that's unique. You're going to be in a city that's growing. We're going to put you in an incredible market. Once we get this to a point where the physical structure is the same as the competitors, and now all of a sudden Greenville, the fan base is growing, and there's a greater awareness of what's going on, I think we could be sitting here in 5 years. We kid around what we've done in 5 years from the start. What we've done from even 7 years when we first started turning this. What is, and I'd propose this to the fan base. What does this look like in 5 years to them? Like, what, and really kicking around that thought, right? Not just getting, because here's what you see, right? Normal business structure. You start, you grow, you plateau, and then you decline. That's what happens in most business cycle. The way that you have to keep growing to fight that plateau is you have to continue to aim for what's next. Mm-hmm. And the second that you stop aiming at what's next is the second you hit that plateau. And you don't see many companies that go plateau and back up, right? Because now once you've lost that momentum. And so when people hear me talk, they're like, man, he's really pushing this facility. The Timmons, they win games. It's not so much that, hey, well, we need this new structure. It's more energy, right? It's more connecting with the city and really bringing an awareness to this of like, hey, there's new life going, right? Mm-hmm. And we're going for gold, right? Like we're chasing this thing at the ultimate level. And I think when you start to think about all that, You and I were talking yesterday just about different small ideas, the shooting stuff and different little technologies that Aldred has brought to the table, and like just like these marginal gains, and that's where I think that we've got some good momentum. We got to keep doing what we're supposed to be doing as a program. But I would say, right, like it takes all of us as supporters that are listening to really like not get to a point of uncomfortability, but what does it take to go be blank, and let's not be afraid of that, and let's not just set it as something that's easy. Let's set it at something that's like, hey, and then if we feel like it's too much of a stretch, the question I would ask is why. And you go back to Steve Spurrier when he sat up there and he got the South Carolina job. Why not us?
Yep.
Why not? And so are we a lot better shape than we were, a couple years ago? Absolutely. But it's still fun to think about where can we go next, and that's what kind of invigorates me every day.
And what excites me about everything you said is that we're in lockstep on what that is, and that there's a lot of great things coming down the pike, some of which we can share right now, some of which are coming, and that there's a part of this plan and this vision, the growth that you're pushing and the vision that you have, which is really in cycle with what we're trying to do at Furman as an institution. And then there's some key points of investment and opportunity that are coming up, and then there's increased growth. There's different things down the road that are starting to come together, but it's a great compliment to you, to your staff, to the team, to the alumni, to the donors, to the fans who have really believed in this and then the growth of where this is headed. But it's a very exciting time for Furman basketball, and congrats to you, Bob. It's exciting. But Dan's got some questions.
Yeah. Two questions submitted by fans. We'll get to them quickly and then get you back to doing your mad scientist diagramming work. But the first one says that it seems as if we're getting higher profile recruits on campus in the past, and in parentheses, they said recently a couple of 4-stars posted about it on Twitter. Obviously, we can't talk about names. But the question is, are we seeing increased traction with more highly regarded recruits than the past, or is this business as usual and social media has made that type of thing easier to find out about than the past?
Well, those are always tricky because, do I feel like sustained winning, when you win 20 games 1 or 2 times, it's like, okay, I was an assistant here and I'd be recruiting, and I remember the first question was always, well, are you guys D1 or D2? And so we had to kind of grow through that. And then you win 20 games a couple years and it's like, oh, well, where are y'all at? And then now here recently it's like, oh, okay, Furman's recruiting me. And I think I would say that's the biggest thing is we've noticed a greater awareness of the name. I don't know, we'll find out. There's a lot of programs, you study the programs that I study, the Villanovas, the Baylors. There's things that you've got to watch, and as you're in flight and you're looking, like you got to make sure you stick to identity, right? And I think that's been the challenge for us is, Rick Byrd won forever at Belmont, and he's a guy I studied a long time, and I still think he and Bob McKillop, the best thing they did was they stayed true to who they were, right? And it's not about getting the quote, like the stars and all that is completely irrelevant to me. I wouldn't know if that was right or wrong. We've got to continue to find people that belong here because that's what's going to work here. If that allows us, what I've said, the language I've used, and I don't think if Clay Mounts is in the Netherlands listening to this, I can see him smiling ear to ear right now. I think we're getting a little bit better starting point, than when Clay was 6'7", 180 pounds walking on campus. I think now we're able to get 6'7", 200 walking on campus. But that doesn't mean that guy's going to come in every single day of his redshirt year the way Clay did and act desperate and grow and learn at that rate. Mm-hmm. So investment still equals return. So like the return on this is still going to come down to an investment once they arrive. So if we get infatuated with what's the starting point and we start to praise that to where entitlement gets into the organization, we're going to be in here scratching our heads. And so I would say to that, yes, we've got increased awareness. We're getting a little bit better of a starting point. Now the deal is don't let pride get into the equation. Like keep focused on what we do and continue to develop at that rate.
The other question, home games, how much does the team feed off the energy of the crowd, and are there things that you would like to see the crowd do or not do during the course of a home game?
Well, we met on this for a while yesterday, and I think, I say this like anybody that's been in Timmins when it's rocking, I mean, you know what it is.
Yeah.
I mean, it's fun and it's loud, and we've all got those moments. I think what I would say is, we've put in more thought as a department, not even me included, but with Jason and Drew and his team, and just being able to think about this stuff more and more, making this more of an event. And we all saw, and again, don't I know what it is. I understand the Tennessee and Alabama deal, but what I'm talking about is when you see college sports right now, and you go to Clemson football game. It's an event, right? There's lights, there's sound, there's energy, there's DJs, there's MCs,
Yep.
there's you know what I mean? Like it's like we want to present an event. And I think when we go in there and we're intentional about the energy and driving the energy, which in my opinion starts with your students, right? Making sure that student section is engaged and going, and then everybody else, trying to make this a little bit more of an event so that, hey, of course, when Slauson gets a breakaway dunk or Mike hits a 3 in transition, yes, we're all going to get up. But to make it from tip to buzzer, that this is going to be the sustained energy level, I think that's kind of the next, jump in this is just, making it to where you can really feel that from like I said, from the tip to the buzzer. And we're putting a lot of work into that.
And I think it's a need. I think you get to the point as a program where your fan base is supporting your success and it's helping you win games, because that energy continuity that gets you when you're down and sustains when you're up. But I'll use this as a plug for Thursday, November 3rd. So both basketball teams, men's, women's basketball, but specifically our students and our fan base are invited to be a part of this Thursday, November 3rd in Timmins at 7:30 p.m. This is where a lot of those things are going to happen. We're going to talk about what does it look like, what's the energy, what's the feeling, what are we trying to build for the season ahead, and this is an important date for our fan base. So if you're a season ticket holder, if you're a fan, if you want to bring kids, like this is a more the merrier. You want to bring an entire elementary school, come on Thursday, November 3rd. But we've got to get to the point of teaching traditions. We've got to get to the point of competing for interest, and we're not just looking at ourselves on this. We're looking at our peers. We're looking at our competitors. Like I think the Tennessee-Alabama example is a perfect example. Or we talk about that Clemson example. Like there's a built-in culture to successful basketball and football programs in terms of how they engage their base. And their base is there because they believe in the culture and what they're trying to accomplish above and beyond the court. So it's one of those things that builds as you go. And I think, to your point, 85% winning percentage in Timmins, but it could be even more. It could be even a stronger atmosphere in terms of what we're trying to promote. But Thursday, November 3rd, Hoops Night, starring Bob Richey, the men's basketball program, and also with Jackie in the women's basketball program. But we're excited about that. But, Bob, I really, really appreciate your time. Thank you for everything you've been doing.
Absolutely.
Know that you're getting ready for a scrimmage tonight, and you got to go back to working on game planning. But thank you very much for everything you're doing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I'll just put in a plug. Just earlier today recorded the latest edition of the All In podcast, and we've been alternating weeks. Coach Richey 1 week and then somebody else from his staff the next week. And today we spent about 30 minutes with Justin Games, Assistant Director of Sports Medicine and the head basketball trainer, which was an interesting conversation.
He's really good.
Yeah.
I don't know what y'all talked about, but he
Well, you'll have to listen to it when Jordan Lyons drops it.
he allows me to sleep better at night, I can tell you that. So he's one of the best.
Yep. So check it out, the All In podcast coming up. Bob, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Just checking out what's going on campus and off campus as we look ahead to events of this week. Women's soccer is at Wofford tonight. We're recording this on Tuesday. That's a 7 p.m. Kick there. Women's volleyball has its final home match of the year tomorrow. That's Wednesday versus Wofford at 7 p.m. Women's golf is at the Landfall Tradition beginning on Friday. Women's soccer, the Southern Conference Tournament starts on Friday, and women's golf on Saturday. And then, of course, we have football on Saturday, homecoming against Chattanooga. So it's a busy time of the year. Of course, there are very few non-busy times of the year around here. Well, let me turn your microphone back up. There you go.
Yeah, this is all year round. Actually, we spent some time even in our department meeting today talking about our staff's energy and just rest, just being cognizant of how much we've got going on. Because we've been, and this is what college athletics is. You go from August until May without a stop, and you know that and you expect it and you want that.
But I really enjoyed that time with Bob. Just to put in a plug for both our men's and women's basketball teams. They've been aggressively marketing energy and ticketing and all the different things that take place. There's a lot coming up. I would encourage our fans to look into it. One of the things I've talked about with Bob, we need this energy, and the same with Jackie. We open up on Monday night, November 7th, and it's less than 2 weeks away. The same with the women. It's 2 weeks from today. It's Tuesday, November 8th. And there's just a lot coming up with both programs. I would encourage the fan base, if you can be a part of November 3rd, it'll be a special day to get us started. But we've got to hit the ground running. We got to hit the ground running from day one to be a big part of it. But before we get there, I also want to talk about football. I know you had a great trip up to Lexington and great performance by our team, but really proud of where the football program is and also what the opportunity that they have ahead of them this weekend for homecoming, playing Chattanooga. I have the opportunity to sit on the NCAA Regional Advisory Committee when we're working on seedings and selections and recommendations, and Furman is getting some great respect along with other members of our conference, and all of them are ahead of us in these opportunities with Chattanooga and Mercer. Samford's still got to go through Chattanooga and Mercer as a part of that, and I'd say that's probably the only disappointment we've had this year is just not closing out that game or that opportunity that we had there. But our football program, Clay Hendricks in the top 25 this week, and we're going to need great support for this upcoming weekend for Chattanooga, and we already feel the energy coming back for homecoming, but would encourage everyone to be a part of that. Also, a shout-out to our men's golf program and to Will for winning the Furman Intercollegiate as a co-champion, Will Moreland, and just everything he's been doing. Following up on the women's golf since we've last met. We just won the Lady Paladin Invitational, which is another huge win for them, which has been great. Getting ready for cross-country championships this weekend. They're going to be at Johns Island. If anyone's near the Charleston area, they're going to go off at 10 and 10:45 on Sunday, and looking forward to them chasing their 10th championship for both the men and the women. A great opportunity for them. And then men's and women's soccer are getting to the end of their seasons in terms of regular season. The women play tonight against Wofford in the Southern Conference playoffs. The men have senior night against VMI on Saturday. Then they embark. And we had a great weekend with volleyball. We just had a senior day on volleyball celebration and a big win for them. So a lot of great things taking place, and they play Wofford tomorrow. So another great opportunity against the Terriers. But things are good, Dan, and just excited. But what are the things that you want to talk about with our time together? We can do questions. We can talk. What do you want to do?
Well, we've got some questions, but you kind of intrigued me before we get there.
Good.
You said in the text message that you sent me earlier today, from my perspective, would like to talk about points of pride and points of concern.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you'll notice, I actually put that on our little list up here, points of pride and areas of concern. That intrigued me. I wanted to see. I know I have a pretty good idea of what points of pride might be, but I'll let you go there. But let's open with that before we get to any of the questions.
And I thought you were going to do conference realignment and all that other stuff, the fun stuff. But no, just points of pride. And we don't want this to sound like an infomercial for Furman Athletics, but I do want our fan base to know that we're doing something really special here. The people is my greatest point of pride. The coaches, the staff, the student athletes, and the support that we have right now is just off the charts. I hope everyone can appreciate, and I think you can, just sitting here with Bob, just the excellence that he has academically, athletically, off the court. One of the best things that I've done with the basketball program in the last month was just sitting in on a presentation with Lemon Perfect, with the CEO, who's a former basketball coach and a friend of mine, who Bob had brought back to speak to the team. And just these opportunities that these teams have, the work that these coaches are putting in. It's been a pleasure to watch Clay Hendricks with his new staff. It's been great to see the development of our external units and fundraising units, and just great people. The work that you are doing, our communication staff is doing to constantly engage our fan base has been awesome. The other thing I want to talk about as a point of pride is just this great work ethic that we're seeing within the department and this commitment to go above and beyond. It's really special, the things that the fan base might not be able to see, but when the majority of your teams are coming out to support the other teams at cross-country meets and golf outings and the little things, tennis matches that matter when you talk about what it means to be a part of this Furman family is just really impressive. But there's a lot of work that goes in. When you're spending time as an administrative staff trying to figure out ways to get people days off because of how hard they're working, I think that's a really special thing because it speaks to the excellence of this department. I'm just thinking about you. You and I are going to do this just that week when the team's in Charleston, we got Wofford here, and then they're coming back, for that game in Charleston. That's a grind. That's an extra effort, and I have no doubt that you're excited about it and want to do it, and it takes its toll, and we got great people, so you got to reward and appreciate that. And then the performance has just been really strong, across the board. The metrics, the engagement, the involvement, the performance by teams, and I think of all the teams, the only teams right now that I think are a little bit down are soccer programs are down relative to where we would expect them to be right now. And there's reasons for that. There's injuries that are part of it. It's a transition. There's some things that they're going through, but they're still in the mix for everything they're doing, and we expect them to be back strong. But things are really good, Dan. So I think from points of pride, that's where I'm coming from. The other thing I mentioned that I think is important for our fan base to know, to you, and this is something we spent time. We just had our board of trustees here about a week or two ago, and part of my presentation to them was talk about areas of concern. To think about, we talk about points of pride. We go through all the great things that are going on, and a lot of the metrics in the academics and the success and the fundraising and the engagement are great. But areas of concern that I just want our fan base to know is that the fan base really needs to be keeping track of, to the best of their ability, this NCAA Transformation Committee and the impact of that. And that's some of the questions that are alluded to that you're seeing in this process. It's beginning to get more and more national news, but this NCAA Transformation Committee is effectively deciding the future of Division I athletics in terms of where we are and where those things are. It's something that at each conference meeting and at each NCAA meeting that I've been a part of is the number one topic. And it's something that there's a committee comprised of presidents, comprised of athletic directors, comprised of commissioners, with student-athlete impact that's going to determine the fate of Division I. And I know we've touched on this, but this is going to impact FBS football. This is going to impact Division I. It's going to impact the size. Like, you're hearing rumors now about the size of the NCAA tournament in the future, and there's going to be varying opinions on these things across the board. But it's an area of concern. It's also an area that I think optimistically everything is going to be okay. But it's something that does have a landscaping change to Division I athletics, and we've got to be really able to adapt and adjust to what those things are. And we're a little bit in the dark because the decisions will be made by the committee and the recommendations will be shared with the NCAA over the course of the next 2 months. But it's something that's certainly at the top of my area of concern in terms of things we need to be watching and participating in. And we are. And some of this is you got to wait and see to what's the final verdict on these things, but it's something that's taking place. Other things that concern you is just, as you go through that institutional process of working with enrollment and budget, and it's something that affects Furman, but it's something that affects national trends on schools such as ours, schools that are national liberal arts institutions of our size. And enrollment really does matter, and the budget impact on that and the effective impact on a Division I institution when you go through those things. And part of it is just reminding our fan base that those things matter when you're trying to operate as a Division I institution at our size and scale. It's different when you're at Clemson. It's different when you're at Alabama. And I think most people know that. You look at what the Big Ten's bringing in with the TV contract. And some of the things that Bob just said that really resonate with me is we've got to continue to work towards getting to a place of sustainability where our brand and the things that we do as an athletic department, as a basketball program, as a football program, as an athletic department, resonate nationally so that we can be self-sustaining, so we can operate independent from those concerns and continue to push our brand forward. And that's really kind of a call to action when I talk about just the things that matter for Furman athletics, so our fan base really knows, is your participation matters. Your engagement, your attendance at games, your participation in the things that we do, your ability to give, and it doesn't matter how much the giving is, but just participation alone in giving, it really matters. Those that can give and can prioritize Furman athletics, this is something that's really important, because if you care about it, we got to continue to support all the different things that we're doing at a time of inflation. So at a time where families are feeling the pinch more than ever, we're in the same spot. We're trying to grow and do the things that we need to do, but the continual investment in the programs and the things that we're doing are really important. And that's stuff that we got to continue to focus on, and we can't lose sight of, because that's what's allowing us to grow. One of the best things we've got going on with our men's basketball program, for example, is just been this really strong, aggressive fundraising push that's been driven by a lot of different donors around the program and alumni that believe in where that's going. I feel the same way with our other successful programs, that there's a very, very strong sense of commitment and financial support to drive things forward. And whether those are capital projects, whether that's endowments, whether that's annual operating, whether that's creative funding on things, is that money talks, and that's something that allows us to make decisions independent from a budget that allow us to continue to grow. And that's where there's a great sense of optimism for me. But those are areas of concern that we have when you talk about where we're going big picture. So I just shot you a lot, but when you hear that, what are some of the things you hear when I say that to you?
Well, to me, I think it's the big picture is just the great unknown.
Yes.
With the transformational committee, as you were talking about, and what's the Power 5 going to look like, or in basketball, Power 6, I think. What's that going to look like, and are they going to take their ball and go in a different direction from the NCAA, and how does that then affect everything else below it? To me, I think that's the single biggest question over all of college athletics right now.
Yeah, it's my belief, and our commissioner says it really well, that everyone wants to stay underneath the same big umbrella. That there is a feeling amongst NCAA that all of us, regardless of size and scale, want to participate in the NCAA in terms of this amazing operation that we have. And that would include all sports and different aspects that are a part of it. The thing that people need to be knowledgeable about is that a lot of the legal cases that are taking place and antitrust cases that are taking place and different things that are affecting legislation is that the model from within is changing very quickly. So if you go back and you look at different lawsuits over time that have taken place, the Bannon case that impacted name, image, and likeness. If you talk about the Alston case that impacts benefits, there's just a recent case that just came out that has to do potentially with looking at pay for play and all the different things in terms of what those models are. So I think there's some forward thinking that's going on here when it comes to how we operate and the things that we do and the resources that we have available. But this amateur model is changing, and it's changing quickly. So we've been adaptive, and we've been able to participate in this. I believe at the end of the day, I think Division I is going to continue to operate, and we're going to continue to be there both as a Furman and as a Southern Conference. But some of these larger things that are taking place have a chance to potentially change some of these different sports. I thought it was interesting that when people are doing analysis about college football, you look at the college football bowl system and the playoff system, is that there's no money going back to the NCAA around football. The money that's coming back to the NCAA is coming through the basketball tournament in terms of what that is. And then we look then at distributions. You look at in terms of how leagues are aligned, is that leagues are going to look at resources and say, okay, how many schools in a league do we want to have, and how many distributions do we want to have here, and what is our economic and financial model? So there's an opportunity and there's a challenge for every Division I team to really figure out where you belong. And we've been on the front edge of that in terms of trying to figure out where we belong and where we grow in this process. And Bob and the basketball program have done a great job of creating some of that national brand awareness for us at Furman.
Want to get to some of the questions?
Let's do it.
All right, let's start with the first one on the list. That's usually a good place to start. Any plans to update the video/scoreboard here in Paladin Stadium?
Great question. And I was actually just talking about that with Hunter Reed before we came in here. We are constantly looking at what do we need to do to improve our game day experience, both football, basketball, and otherwise. That video board is actually brand new. That board was brought in here in 2019, the time when I was coming in. So I think the question isn't about the video board, but I think it's pertaining to the sound is an area that we've been looking to improve, and the lights is an area that we've been looking to improve. So when you look at the areas and we look at an evaluation, a self-evaluation of ourselves, we even talked about this at the end of last year, the sound quality that comes from the video screen is something that we are going to address and that we're working on. And then the lights is something else. Like one of the great experiments we had was having some night games here, and they've proven from student engagement and attendance to be something that people want and that they want to participate in, particularly when it's warmer outside. But we're looking at both of those different options when it comes to sound quality, when it comes to lighting quality. The video board being a new video board is something it's a good product, but there's always the opportunity to update and increase. This is an area that is of donor interest, is something that we could be aggressive with in terms of things that we want to do. We've made a number of cosmetic changes and structural changes and environmental changes around the stadium, and we'll continue to do so. But I think for us, it's more the lighting and the sound are the two different areas, and I believe that's what the person may be asking about the video board.
Next question, staying in Paladin Stadium, is the end zone building idea still a possibility?
This question keeps coming up, and I'm not exactly sure where it comes from, and I think it's something we addressed in a previous podcast that I wanted to talk about. just to give clarity, is
Well, see, I intentionally left the Timmons question out because we get that in every podcast, so there's no reason to answer it again.
Well, this is part of the question, is that when we're talking about capital projects, we're talking about from a leadership standpoint, from a Board of Trustees process, and from an athletic department process, our number one priority is Timmons Arena. And it has been and continues to be, and I think there's some good news coming down the pike, but it's a little bit premature to say anything more than that at this moment. But that's been a process that we've been undergoing as an institution as we get ready for it. In terms of the capital projects around football, we talked about this a little bit the last time this came up, is that there's a not a disagreement, but there's different groups that have different interests when it comes to what's next for the football program from a capital perspective. Clay was here, and he mentioned it. For him to have an indoor-type structure that would facilitate his needs in poor weather would be something that would be more of a priority for him. I think he processes things more operationally. We do have a group of alumni that would be interested in a potential end zone project that would change a little bit of the face of that area there by the old field house in terms of what we would do there, and there's definitely opportunities there. And then there's members of our FFPA, our Former Football Players Association, have an interest in terms of some space that they actively engage on game days, a pavilion of sorts. And we're going through the process of looking at all those different options. It's not at the front of our list of things to do right now in terms of where we are. But obviously, a donor can change that overnight. So if there's funding for any one of those three different options that would really push that to the front, then those things would become more important. But the honest answer is we're more focused on Timmons right now as a more of a priority from a leadership and board level. And then looking, from my perspective, improvements in the stadium when it comes to the game day experience is more of a priority for us from a program perspective from the athletic department. But we'll keep pushing that forward, and that may be something that comes up. But I will say that if the right donors out there and they have an interest in having a larger conversation on that, we would certainly expedite that process. But
So we could name an indoor practice facility the Donnelly Dome?
Or the Dan Scott Center.
The Donnelly Dome? Yeah, exactly.
It just depends. But it's exciting. I mean, these are great things to talk about. We have other areas that we're trying to improve in our athletic program as well that would impact the greater success of the department as a whole. So it's just timing. And a lot of these things with capital projects is you got to present the plan and the vision, and you got to set it out there and see what happens as you go forward. But my experience with capital projects is when there's a donor that really wants to endorse those things and push those things forward, you're going to see a greater sense of urgency in terms of getting those things done. And that's part of the process that we are with Timmons, is that there's some interest, some urgency, and some opportunities. So we're working through that process.
Next question, what was the reason for moving the 2025 home date with William and Mary back? Another FBS game maybe?
Yeah, no, so scheduling, I think I addressed this in a previous podcast with you as well. We were scheduled out into 2026 with a lot of our different FBS opportunities. Scheduling, to me, is going to be at the discretion of our coaches. I think I shared this before, is that as a former coach and someone who did scheduling as a former coach, I know how much that matters to what you do and the input you have. And my philosophy as an athletic director is that I'm going to advise and offer opportunities, but I'm really going to trust our coaches in terms of what's most important to them. As we come up in the next couple of years, part of Clay's importance is one FBS game to him is sufficient. When he looks at it from his scheduling perspective, home games are important to him. He's emphasized that, and positioning himself to have an opportunity to number one, win the Southern Conference, but number two, to be an FCS playoff participant is most important to him. So the decisions he's made around scheduling and changes that you may see are organized in that way in terms of those different things. There's a school of thought. You could say, well, playing two FBS teams is going to bring more revenue back to the institution. That's certainly a great opportunity, or might bring more notoriety back to the institution. My philosophy is that I'm going to trust our coaches to make decisions on scheduling that they think give them the best chance to be the best possible team they could be to both win the conference and also to get to the FCS playoffs. And that's how those decisions have been made. So that may not answer the question why the change, but there's always tweaking and scheduling. And then we look out. We look out from there in terms of where we're going. And this would be a postseason conversation as we assess the future of this. This is part of this change. I know people don't want to hear it, but there are some schools and some conferences that right now are holding back on scheduling games because they don't know what their TV is going to dictate, what their conferences are going to dictate in terms of how they're going to compete against FCS. There may be some games that are scheduled already. That doesn't mean those games are going to be played, because a conference is going to make a decision on what they believe to be their priorities when it comes to scheduling first. And in a contract, if the conference changes it, you're not getting paid anyways. It's, the contract will be null and void if you if their conference makes these changes in terms of where things go. So we're aware of that. We're ready for adjustments. My thought is that I think the FBS teams are going to still want to play FCS because it's a really good game for them. They get another home game, and it's a really great game for us, and it's also important for the state of football, college football as a whole.
Is Furman licensing, or to what level is Furman licensing apparel for fans to buy? Example, football and basketball jerseys.
Yeah, I love this question. In a recent podcast, this question came up. I brought it back to our team, and actually they were really excited to hear this because it was an opportunity for them. That's something they've been working on with our licensing and apparel groups. So actually there is a meeting tomorrow. I just checked with our staff this morning where they're actually reviewing this exact thing. And I love the fact that people want to have more Furman apparel, more branded items, different opportunities that may be out there for them, and that's what they're exactly working on. So I would love to see more football jerseys, basketball jerseys, other sport jerseys that are out there in the market. Our licensing and branding is way up, so the percentages and the opportunities that are out there and our aggressiveness in this space is something we want to continue to pursue. It's great for Furman. It's great for revenue. It's great for our fans, and we love the opportunities that come with that as well.
Couple of questions that I had.
Yeah, let's go. And you weren't worried about the Big East? I saw the Big East question.
Huh?
The Big East?
I just didn't think that was one that was a viable question to it. I mean, Furman basketball's not going to the Big East, right?
No. And that's what I think the question had merit. The question is, are you looking at other conferences in terms of the future? And it's a kind of a complicated question in the sense that, number one, we're in the Southern Conference and we're committed to being here. What we need the Southern Conference to become is a multi-bid league for basketball. That's really important. The Southern Conference serves a lot of different means when it comes to football and our other sports, but as a basketball opportunity for us to have the opportunity to be in a multi-bid league is really, really important. I think the reason the question is relevant is that across the landscape, every school is looking at different moves that are being made. I thought it was really interesting to see Kennesaw State make that jump to Conference USA, and good for them for making that investment, that opportunity into that league. Now, when you make these moves, they might not always be in the best interest of your institution. There's things you got to consider: regionality, budget, finance, academics, class time. They're all the different things that come into it. But positioning your athletic department for future opportunities is a really unique thing. The Big East is an interesting option, and I'd say in some cases it would be a dream option for basketball programs. But there's other conferences that are situated like the Big East that make sense as well when you're looking at where you might wind up and what you might want to do. And that's part of why I asked that question when Bob was here before, is to talk about a vision that we have in terms of Furman athletics. Number one goal for us right now is for us to take care of our venture, our programs, our university, our sustainability, our excellence, and meet on all those standards. Number two is to get our conference to the point where our conference can support a multi-bid league in basketball. That's really important. And everything we've been doing with this basketball program is to get to the point where if we don't win that game on Monday, like it's that feeling we all had, you're right there, you lose the game with 4 seconds to go to be in the NCAA tournament, that you've done enough with your program and your conference that you would earn the opportunity to do that. If our league can't support that, we got to look at options for how do we have an opportunity to be a multi-bid league for basketball that also fits the needs of the remainder of our teams in that process. And those are the conversations we have with other ADs and in the commissioner's room in terms of trying to get our conference to where it can be, because it does serve a lot of different interests that we have. But I thought that's a relevant question because people are looking around the landscape and saying, okay, why are these teams making these different moves? Well, it's all positioning right now. But there's a big question that needs to be answered first with the Transformation Committee before we answer these questions about where we're going to wind up in terms of conference.
Now can we get to the
Yeah,
two
let's
that I
go.
had for you?
Yeah, let's
Okay. I think our fans would be interested in this, but talking about the Samford thing and up front, not criticizing officiating. It is what it is. That's all been handled, but there's a process that Clay goes through when there's a play that a penalty that's called or not called. He's got a process that he sends plays into the league to the director of officials and all this. But when we do have a major, we'll call it a major malfunction like we had during the Samford game, what's your role in that situation with the officiating, with the league itself? What role do you play?
Yes, I think I have an interesting perspective as a former coach because I've been in that situation on the sideline when things go down. in general, you as a coach or as a participant in a contest, when it's a judgment decision, like when it's a decision that's being made on the field, you got to respect the call either way. You've got to learn as a team how to go through that process and how to either not lose your wits about you or learn through those situations. This was the epitome of the terminology attitude when I was at Villanova, where we would talk about the attitude was not worrying about the things you couldn't control and focus on the things you could and how to work through those different situations. And in this case, when it's a judgment call on the field, you've got to, as a player, as a coach, as a fan, you've got to be able to work through that because you don't have the ability to change a judgment call. In this case, what made this particular situation unique, and I can't say too much about it,
right,
is that because of the replay followed by another replay and the huge pause in action both on the field and on TV and in the whole situation, there's very few times that I would actually engage in a process with our conference where I would engage a call. I've got to have a certain measure of decorum and process with these things. It's certainly something you can address, and I know different ADs have got different philosophies on where they get them. But one of the things in this case that probably worked to our advantage is that I don't generally question these things. There's been probably 2 or 3 times since I've been here that I have, and never in game until this particular game. What made this circumstance unusual and in this case, the reason the conference came through was the unusual nature of the call followed by the replay, followed by the second replay, which made the whole thing confusing to everyone that was a part of it. The teams, number one, were confused and not understanding what was taking place on the field. The delay in the game, the delay on TV, the whole process that went on, it was very unclear. And I will give the conference credit. I think to the conference's credit, both the head of officials, the commissioner, everyone that was involved in it, did everything they could to try to rectify that situation and acknowledge the challenge of that particular situation in that process. I will tell you, if it was just the one replay, and even if it went against us, it doesn't matter. Like, we don't have ability to contest that or have a conversation about that. It was the odd nature of the call, replay, second replay, where you had to really question what was the process that took place here that led to this, and how did we go about this? And I think that's the point where there was some questionings on what the process, how it was managed from a game perspective on the field. That's where I got involved in that process in terms of understanding it. And that I will give the conference credit for that, and I also give Clay credit for that. I mean, that particular call took place in the second quarter of the game, clearly deflated our energy and put us in a position that was an adverse situation. But Clay owned it in the locker room. He said it. We had we had a half to go. We were 3 quarters into that game. We had other opportunities to control our fate. We just didn't rebound from that particular situation. And I respect the way Clay handled it, but I also know how hard that is as a coach and as a student athlete, as a parent, as a fan. When something happens, you're just, what happened here? And that's where I think the conference did a good job of responding to what the issue was. It can't change the outcome, but they did a good job responding to it.
The other question that I like to ask coaches from time to time, especially maybe a first-year head coach after their first year is up, you've been a coach, you've been an associate or an assistant athletic director, but this is your first athletic director's job, and you're 3 years into it now. What have you learned about yourself in these last 3 years?
You sent me that question before we got here, and it really made me think. And I'm really proud of where we are as an athletic department. I'm really proud of what we've been doing, our culture, our values, and the things we emphasize, the people. So actually, I don't think the growth is as much for me when it comes to the professional side of things. I think if I think about the answer to that question, the growth and the change I've seen has really been more, I think, as a husband, as a father, in terms of this opportunity to really engage my family as a part of Furman athletics. For those of you that may see me at games or around and about, you'll usually see some kids in tow or people around on game day. That's not really how it is every day. But my prior job, which was awesome, and I loved it, was great, but because we were playing on a national schedule, because I was fundraising on a national space more so than even here, this is a little bit more regional in terms of the opportunities, is that I was gone a lot. I was physically gone. I was on a lot of planes. I was traveling. I was recruiting. I was fundraising. I was not around a ton, and that was just the demands of the job of what it took. We were at a point as a family that we were scheduling one night literally per week that I would be home to have dinner with my family. That was the demands that job demanded. And that's one night including the weekends. This Saturdays and Sundays didn't always exist. And what I've really enjoyed in this process is the growth of really looking at a Furman as an institution, athletic department, and Greenville as a whole, of how to have my family be a part of this process, my wife, my children, my friend. It's really nice to be able to share this adventure and this journey with them. And, Bob gets this question a lot. I get this question a lot. People are always like, what's next? Where are you going? What are you going to do next? I'm like, this is exactly where I want to be, because I'm able to live out my best self. I'm able to be the professional that I want to be, and I'm able to be the person that I want to be, and I'm able to share this journey with my family and in my faith, and I think that really matters. And Bob's sincere about that too. I mean, he's had great opportunities, and he's chosen to stay at Furman. I've had opportunities. I've chosen to stay at Furman. And so much of this is because it's fulfilling academically with our student athletes. It's fulfilling athletically, competitively. Being competitive is very important to me in terms of what we do, but it's also very fulfilling to me on a personal level in terms of having my family be a part of this adventure, and I've loved it. So that I think that's where I've seen the more growth, and being patient. I think that when you go through this process at a school of this size, being able to make changes, they don't happen overnight. You can put things in place, but you've got to be patient enough to see those things through and build those things through, because it is a bit more of a challenge than you may have. Other places may have more resources or may opportunities or may be quicker off the gate, but we are pushing it and doing it, and people are working hard and having success, and I love it. But that's, I think, the biggest change I've seen.
Good enough. We are just about at that magic hour mark. So anything else we need to cover?
No, just we need you homecoming weekend.
Yeah.
To our fan base, for those of you that are on the fence, we need you this weekend. This is a huge weekend for our football program, for Furman. This is a great opportunity. Like you talk about what you want. Like, you want to play a top 10 team in your house for homecoming weekend. You want to have that chance to get this signature win that we really need to get our resume ready, both to win the conference and also to have the opportunity to be an at-large for the FCS playoffs. So if you're on the fence, if you can bring friends, if you can support this Furman adventure with us, and we need you here early. I know I've been talking to my staff about that as well. We're expecting a great group back for homecoming. We're expecting lots of energy, lots of tents, lots of fun to be here held on campus. But for those of you that are on the fence, we need you this weekend. We need you to bring fans. We need you to bring energy and be a part of this great opportunity we have as we take on Chattanooga this Saturday in Paladins Stadium. And then also getting ready for this transition into basketball season is really important. Get your tickets ready. Get your energy ready. Come out on November 3rd for Hoops Night. Come out on November 7th and November 8th as we open up the season. Come out November 11th for Belmont. And if you have the time, come down to Charleston and enjoy a really special experience with our basketball program as they participate in an MTE. So there's a lot of great things coming up until we meet again, until we get together at some point later in the year. But just very thankful for everyone's support and everything you do to support Furman Athletics.
Yeah, our next Ask the AD is actually going to be the last one we'll do before January, and that will be on November the 15th, the week before Thanksgiving.
That's going to be a crusher of a week for me, so we're planning on doing something November.
Now, that you're the one who wanted to do the 15th. So.
We might have to push back. We're that's going to be a nuts week, but we're gonna figure out we're going to do it.
Oh, I don't know what's so intimidating about that week. As I look at my calendar here, there's only a football game and 3 basketball games and 2 podcasts and.
Dan, it's crazy, and it's great. This is what you want. You want to have a basketball program, and a football program in the mix with all the other sports going on heading into Christmas.
Yeah.
So it's fun.
Good stuff. Thank you, Jason.
Buddy. Thank you.
This has been Inside Furman Athletics, our monthly visit with Athletic Director Jason Donnelly, and thanks to Head Coach Bob Richey for spending some time with us as well. We will be back again with another edition of Inside Furman Athletics next week. Until then, for Jason and for Bob and all of us at Furman, as always, I'm Dan Scott saying God bless you and so long, everybody.